Blockchain Show is a podcast that demystifies cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for listening. This is the Blockchain Show. I'm your host, Ethan Kinderconnect. It's my pleasure to welcome back Marc from DigitalMint. Marc, welcome back to the show.
Ethan, thank you for having me again. I appreciate being back. I think it's been about 10 months since I've last been on. So a lot has happened. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite the year almost. So yeah, I'm definitely interested to know how you've been, kind of how the business is going. Just in case anyone didn't catch the last episode, maybe you could kind of bring them up to speed. And then for those who did catch the last episode, maybe give us a brief update about how things are going.
Yeah, I think pulling back to the last time of show, I think it was in April when we spoke, and I think the pandemic was and the lockdowns were sort of in full effect, but still in the early phases, so a lot of unknowns on the vaccine. Our prediction within the Bitcoin space was it was going to continue to grow. It was the use cases and the fundamentals is not going to stop the payment system, and it's come true. And I think the testament to users buying Bitcoin for improving their lives and, outside of the legacy systems like ACH and credit and debit and bank wire and all that stuff, even though that, people were losing their jobs, being furloughed, the use of Bitcoin, in our space, in the cash and the over the counter kept increasing. It didn't slow down. And I think we believe our thesis was people were trying to find even more reasons to save a buck and make use of saving money on, transaction fees, and Bitcoin looks very attractive. Also we've seen a massive bull run, since then as well, significantly and mostly in Q4 of last year, the price has absolutely skyrocketed. So it's been, really interesting. And our business as a whole, at DigitalMint, we've never been busier. I think the whole industry itself has never been busier. There's more institutional demand. There's more of these sort of the legacy players in retail who would have never touched Bitcoin. And now we're starting to reach out to groups like us to say, how do we get more involved? How do we make use of Bitcoin in some way, shape, or form? So, we're lucky. I like to, first state, with regards to so many industries and real estate and hospitality and service and so many industries took a real big hit. But, we've been really lucky in this industry because we're growing so fast. It's almost like, the pandemic never really even happened for us. So
yeah, that's good to hear. I remember after the first kind of bull run of Bitcoin, people were very excited and then started to go down and people were, kind of like, oh, it's just a bubble. I knew it. And then here we go again, and everyone's kind of kicking themselves like, oh, I wish I would have gotten in on it. I wish I would have bought when it was going down. And it's like, you never know with these kind of things. So on one hand, it's good rather that there's so much interest in cryptocurrencies. They're talking about it on the news a lot more on like the money shows. And it's just kind of like in the vernacular. But on the other hand, it's kind of like there's so much kind of like speculation and other things going into it. We can get into that a little bit later. Maybe like kind of the negative sides of some of these other cryptos that are emerging. But in general, I think it's a positive thing. It just makes me happy to see so much interest going into Bitcoin and people being able to kind of rise up with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think just to quickly talk about just like you brought up the first kind of bubble and the first sort of big global rise of Bitcoin was in 2017 when the price almost hit $20,000 in a real short period of time, and you had so many people were like, "What is this Bitcoin?" And I think Coinbase had such demand for opening up accounts. I don't think they had even the server capability to handle it. And they were, a lot of people were getting 404'd and shut out of their accounts because of this demand, but nobody knew what they were buying. they're just jumping on sort of the FOMO. What I think is, and then it crashed at 18, and the whole thesis for the next 2 years is Bitcoin is dead. It never really had any legs. That in 2017, it was more thinly traded. There wasn't as much sort of like sustainable volume as there is today. So fast forward to what we saw in Q4 of the price of Bitcoin, is you saw more and more institutional groups are staying away from the speculative side of Bitcoin. They're looking at more as the sort of non-correlated asset class. That's always been my thesis since I've learned about Bitcoin in like 2012, was that this is going to be sort of that non-correlated asset class. This is going to be something that institutional investors, endowments, and the big money, that drives trillions of dollars are going to look at this and say, this is the new digital gold. So you saw a big move of Mass Mutual, I think, put in $100 million allocated into Bitcoin, and they partnered with groups out of like New York called New York Dig, that has been promoting and pushing more institutional groups to use this as a source. So you see more and more companies who have massive balance sheets are saying, now I'm ready to get into Bitcoin. Also, the banks in the middle of 2020 and regulatory and the OCC that gives guidance to the banks said, you are allowed to custody Bitcoin. As long as you have the systems in place, we're going to give you the ability to do that, which gave it to another opportunity. Well, if the banks and the regulators of banks say it's okay for us to buy Bitcoin, we're going to really start looking at that because now it's safer. So you're seeing more of now pulling away from speculative trends to a fundamental trend for people buying it for fundamental reasons. They're looking at this as a new store of value. On top of it, I think we printed $7 trillion plus. And I think there is another package that the Biden administration is still working out right now of another $1.9 trillion in stimulus. So when all is said and done, we're talking about $10 trillion, probably in stimulus and in monetary and fiscal policy, that this money has got to go somewhere. There will be some sort of inflation. And when you have a ton of money in the market, it nearly is going to leak to whatever's hot and whatever's popular. I mean, I don't want to talk about GameStop, which is the hottest conversation, but this is sort of a testament of, sort of new things that people have money are able to do with, and also the power of Reddit and social media. But anyway, back to Bitcoin itself, there's so much money that's out in the market, and so many big corporations and institutional investors are on the sidelines that now feel more comfortable to start allocating. But they're not buying to sell, they're buying to hold for several years at a time. So what they do when they buy and hold, they end up removing that amount of money that's traded. So now you got less the opportunity for people to buy other coins, which should naturally keep rising this price. So my thesis is that this price is to stay. Maybe volatile down to 25,000, but I don't see this price, dropping below $20,000, maybe for eternity. So.
No, I think you're right. And you bring up a good point, though, the stimulus checks. And it's fascinating to me that that's all fiat currency, pretty much just created out, just printed, like you said, or just digits in people's accounts. And then, people can buy, they can buy meme stocks, like you said, or they can buy Bitcoin or some other altcoin, which brings up the question of just money in general. Is this kind of weird, to a lot of people, mystical thing, but in reality, it's just a human creation, and it's you think like of the dollar as this like strong force, but it's this whole the last couple of weeks in the stock, or this last week rather, in the stock market has shown people a lot about our economy, how the markets work, and it's kind of like that scene in The Wizard of Oz when they go behind the curtain and see him operating everything. It's just kind of interesting.
I was just thinking about, like when you do have the wizards, you have a small number of people, who are in Capitol Hill, relative to the population, are making, trillions and trillions of dollars of decisions. The government is the largest corporation in the entire world. If you just look at their financial statements and their balance sheet, nobody comes close to that. I mean, Amazon and Google and Apple are massive companies, but in terms of the overall impact and financial statements, they're nothing compared to the power of the U.S. government. And they're able to get away with it still, and the full faith and credit of fiat, because there's no one to trump them yet. There's no other group that can take over the pole position on the reserve currency yet, because of how open our market is, the transparency of our system. China, in terms of momentum, has a lot of momentum in terms of strength, but their cultural system and their government system is different. It's entirely different than the U.S. I don't know, maybe in our lifetime that could happen, but I don't think over the next several decades that's going to be a concern. So that's going to allow our governments on both sides of the aisle to make decisions that continuously be spendthrifts. When that keeps happening, you have a diluted amount of dollar. You're just going to have natural, extreme amounts of inflation, that we're probably going to see sometime in the next 5 years. And I think for Bitcoin and these altcoins that are non-correlation, that's going to be a great asset. I mean, there's a million different reasons about why, you see some of the big chief investment officers of these major investment groups are predicting Bitcoin to be well over 100,000 when they do some of the basic math of how much, M1 and M2 supplies out in the market. Like, there's no reason why Bitcoin shouldn't continuously skyrocket. And then what you're going to see is the other altcoins are going to also, rise sort of in somewhat correlation with Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I had this thought the other day about the price of Bitcoin rising. At first I thought this is such a great thing. It's catching on again, and then I almost had like a slight panic where I realized, throughout history, there's been times where nations' currencies have been so devalued because of, like you said, inflation. I was thinking, man, is this just another issue of, like, is our dollar just that much less valuable that we need so many more dollars to equal what Bitcoin used to be? Or, you know what I mean? Like, you see those pictures of post-war Germany, post-World War I, where they're walking around with wheelbarrows full of the marks to try to buy bread, or then they end up just burning it because it's more valuable to burn that than buy firewood. I don't think it's that quite extreme, but
yeah, I think, everything's relative. That's the thing, is like, what's the next option? Like, if Elon Musk makes it to Mars and they create a colony and they create Mars dollar, and that becomes the reserve currency for whatever reason, I think that the U.S. as still sort of the hegemon of the world, I don't believe we're going to be unseated anytime soon because of, some of the other reasons I mentioned, and we still have such a massive reserve of infrastructure here. But I think the inflation is going to happen just because of just, the mathematics around the money. I mean, you don't release $10 trillion, which is, probably 6x more in the last year than we ever have since we started, getting off of, the gold standard in the 60s, and then it was official with the Bretton Woods agreement in the 70s. We've never printed as much money as we did. So there has to naturally be, what we're seeing also just from a lending market standpoint is everybody's got money is trying to give it away for free. I mean, interest rates are nothing. So dollar is cheap. Holding dollars and just sitting on dollars doesn't really provide you much value. I mean, so it starts looking for other places that they want to put it, and people want to give it away. So you're gonna once you start seeing this velocity of the movement of dollars, then naturally, just the way that the inflation works, is the price is going to keep increasing. But are people creating as many goods and services today as the rapid rate of the dollars that are being pumped in? I mean, the products and services that people can buy today are not that much different than they could a year ago. So, but now you add $10 trillion into that, and like, don't save $10 trillion has to buy products and services and investments. I mean, real estate, in certain areas, pockets of the country, real estate's skyrocketing, and the government loves this stuff because then they can, they can tax everyone, and the tax doesn't look so bad, when they're in a big deficit, when you've completely inflated the dollar, because it's relative to, whatever your earnings are and the value of your assets. But tying to Bitcoin, Bitcoin becomes, again, that institutions, and the thesis is that this is the digital gold, the digital reserve, and that banks have allowed, and regulators from the federal government said it's okay. We think Bitcoin's a good thing. one thing I wanted to also talk about was some altcoins. Again, we at DigitalMint, don't spend a lot of time on all the other altcoins, but as we look at that at times, over the past few months, you're starting to see another frenzy. I mean, you see Dogecoin just on pure speculation has gone up, and we are getting calls. Where can I buy Dogecoin? Can you start accepting it? Can you help me? Can you go and hit some other market makers to buy some for it? Like, we're getting all sorts of calls, but the thing is, like, it's nothing more than pure speculation. Everybody knows it's like a Ponzi scheme. They know that the price that's driving it up has absolutely no value. So what you're seeing again today, like you're seeing in 2017, is you have this another kind of phase 2 of shitcoins, where someone's putting together a WordPress site, creating a white paper, and creating a non-working GitHub open source page, doing blockchain for napkins or, pots and pans. It's what I'm looking at right now. And people are saying, and they're creating a buzz. I think there's no rules and regulations around it, that can really capture people. There's so much going on that, there are people who are jumping and buying it at 50 cents and then selling it at $2. It's like the pink sheets in the OTC stocks where you don't have to follow all the same SEC regulations. So you're having that again. So altcoins are running crazy, and people who are creating these blockchains are just waiting for their price to go up on rumors and, selling on the news, and then they're out. And then eventually these things wither down to zero. 99% of these new altcoins don't have much value just from on the surface looking at some of them. I'm not saying there aren't a lot of good blockchain systems, but using the altcoins to, use it, they're turning into pump and dumps. And individuals, who are creating these tokens have the ability just to, use the market, use the frenzy, use sort of the momentum of the price and get it and then sell it and make several $1 million. And they're like, well, why do I need to take this money now that I just earned and build something? I've already got a couple million. I'm good. And then they just eventually let the project wither away. Some never even had an intention on creating a project. It was all just smoke and mirrors. So we're starting to see some of that again. And, it's just frenzy and, people hate missing out, just like a lot of people missed out on GameStop, including me.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, I hate to see that. I was really hoping we were done with that phase of what you were just talking about. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this show remember that. I think it was like 2017, the year of the ICO and all that. And so many projects that, it's all hype and then nothing. And then people got left holding the...
Yeah. And if you just go to like marketcap.com, you can see all the 1,000 different coins that are out there. You can rank them by market cap. So you're seeing is some of these coins that went through that ICO phase in 17 are still there. It's like, a stock, I think, what is some of the companies like WorldCom that went bankrupt in like 2002 is still a traded stock on the OTC pink sheets. It's trading at a fraction of a penny. So some of these coins are still trading if people want to buy them. There's no value to them. A lot of these stocks that were dormant, and now all of a sudden you start seeing all this news and frenzy being talked about them, and the price goes from 1 cent to 9 cents. And somebody's just playing the game to use these as pump and dumps. So you see not a lot of the ICOs are just using the existing tokens that are out there to come up with some fake story just to get the price to rise. And most investors, again, know that. They're just like, when the music stops, I just hope I'm not, caught holding the bag. And if I get in 1 cent and sell at 8 cents, I'm happy about it.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's happening again.
Yeah. There's a lot of predatory types in that space for sure, which it kind of brings me to the next question I was meaning to ask you about, basically like monetary policy. And you mentioned that Bitcoin kind of got the approval of a lot of the banks and all that, which I think is good. In terms of, regulation and uses and abuses, what would you like to see happen? And is there anything being done that you approve of or kind of what direction do you think that needs to go?
Yeah, and I think, in like every fast-growing industry, there's always the, ask for forgiveness later, just build it. I think kind of Uber took that approach where going in a ton of cities, not doing as much deep background checks on individuals. They didn't have the infrastructure and they're creating problems and disrupting, and they said, we'll ask for forgiveness later. We've raised billions of dollars. We can survive. So you're seeing companies within the money service business, cash to crypto space, that have just grown blindly. So one thing that's not caught up fast enough is just some of the regulatory and enforcement around the meteoric rise of the number of Bitcoin ATMs in the marketplace. That's, over the last year, it's been the biggest growth that the industry's ever seen exponentially. It was fantastic, and it's kind of a frenzy, and we benefited in part from it. But we've seen a lot of other folks who said, I'm not going to worry about the infrastructure. I'm not going to focus much on protecting customers from being victims of fraud and build a department to save people. I'm not going to do much on, following the rules of the Bank Secrecy Act tied to anti-money laundering. I'm going to just build it. And, after I built a massive empire, then we're going to hire people afterwards. Hopefully we can clean it up. We don't believe that's the best approach. We feel like that, resorts to the lowest common denominator, and, puts us and other groups in that when you have other operators that are not following the rules or just blindly putting out machines and letting anybody buy without and thinking they have no recourse. So that's been something a little bit, I think, disappointing. But, big government and federal agencies don't move fast on groups that are not following the rules. That takes some time. But, again, the only way for our industry to survive is we need to raise the lowest common denominator. And right now, we think the lowest common denominator is far too low than it should be, and they're going unchecked at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. The exposure that we're getting from, or that the blockchain space, cryptocurrency in general, that can be attributed to recent events, I think overall is a pretty good thing. And I'm just kind of curious if with your business at DigitalMint, if you've seen an influx of users or, the ATM uses, or if you have anything to comment about, growth in general.
Yeah, I think we're getting that more like digital gold user that wants to buy and hold it. And obviously the value of buying Bitcoin using cash is the instantaneous nature of the holding of the coin versus you buy it on Coinbase. They provide restrictions from you withdrawing it, and it's like you having money in the bank versus cash in hand. So that value of people buying and controlling their own coins have dramatically increased. But I think what's happened with the popularity and then the banks accepting it and individuals feel like it's more comfortable. What we're seeing, and we built a large fraud department, is all the frauds all the fraud scams that came from the Western Union, MoneyGram, Wire. Like I have somebody calls up a poor woman in her 70s and said your grandson is in jail. You gotta pay $10,000. Here's my Bitcoin. Well, you can pay in Bitcoin, and if you go to a Bitcoin machine, give me $10,000. We'll then release him out of jail. And she's in a frenzy. She goes to the bank, takes $10,000, and runs to go buy Bitcoin. And she realized she was scammed, and that money's gone for good. So they're seeing those old scams are all moving into Bitcoin, and cash to Bitcoin is an attractive place for someone to want to do that. So we've built our technology to fend against that. We have certain algorithms that we built to freeze those transactions. And then we have a fraud specialist connect with every one of these customers to ensure they're not, a victim of a scam before we actually release the coin. We're saving so many people, from that. And we're hearing about so many different stories. We actually updated our website, all the different scams that are out there. And we're trying to drive people to go there to say, if this is, are you one of these people? We're now forcing questionnaires from people that when you set up your account, you have to answer all these questions correctly. And if you don't, we'll freeze the account and not let you open it until we confirm you're not a victim of fraud. So again, this is some of the downsides of an industry that's grown so fast, but regulation and hasn't had time to wrap their arms around it. So it becomes somewhat of a short-term hotbed for scam artists to try to lure people to buy Bitcoin and get away with it. And also the industry or the regulators are not enforcing our industry enough to say you must comply with sort of fraud prevention standards. I've heard just about every story. Romance scams are probably some of the most common scams that we're seeing. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Somebody, meets somebody on Match.com or one of the internet sites. It could be a widower, in their 60s who has a bunch of money and they're lonely, and they fall in cyber love, and the person doesn't actually exist. They're just a fake profile, and they say they're stuck in Germany and they need to upgrade. They need to you need to help me get out of here. Can you send me money? Can you do this? Can you do that? I need cash for my flight. I need to pay for a hotel. I love you, honey. We're engaged. We'll get married once I make it to the States. Before you know it, this widow was sent $20,000. We've learning. So we built systems to stop that, at the onset. So again, all of these scams have been going on for centuries, but now we start seeing those leak into cryptocurrency. And in our industry, we're trying to be sort of white knights to do whatever we can to stop this sooner than later.
Yeah, that's good to know. I mean, this ransomware, it's something that, I'm sure large companies have been targeted as well. I think in the UK, there was something about, what do they call it? Like the WannaCry virus, where a bunch of medical records got leaked.
Yeah.
It just comes to mind. My favorite one was an email I got. Well, I think it was just sent to the podcast email about, it said, we have compromising video of you looking at pornography. Send this Bitcoin to this address.
I was gonna say the same thing. I've gotten 10 of those. I think I replied to one of those and I said, that's awesome. I really do want you to, splash this all over to everybody I know. Please do. Yeah. So those are kind of, and there are people who get scared and then end up paying for those, and they go under the radar. But the actual ransomware industry has skyrocketed, and it's sort of a function of, you have a massive growth of more non-technical companies trying to, digitize themselves, put all the data on the cloud, build systems to automate their lives. This industry is going to take another 30, 40 years before all these sort of legacy Fortune 1000 organizations are to where they need to be. As they're doing that, they're neglecting a lot of the basic cybersecurity, elements to fend against that. A lot of these folks get compromised and held for ransom. Still, the most common way of somebody downloading a virus is through a phishing email. To this day, somebody who shouldn't click on an email clicks some sort of Trojan that downloads into their system and then gets access to data and then locks them out. It's still, I think 80% of it is somebody clicking on an email that they shouldn't and downloading a PDF or a docx that they shouldn't. And then when that happens, there's been an insane growth in 2021. The common coins is Bitcoin and now Monero. So Monero is becoming the preferred token for a lot of these sort of ransomware variants for the obvious reason. Monero is far more transparent, or less transparent, far more anonymous in order to be able to track it. Because with Bitcoin, it's an open source blockchain that you can track, about where the movement is. So some of these groups are saying the only way that you could settle it, I don't want Bitcoin, I want Monero. You tell somebody in a Fortune 1000 company, an executive, who barely knows what Bitcoin is, you got to send me a Monero. They're like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about. Then they reach out to the cyber, the incident response consulting firms, and then they come to us and then we help them kind of identify the situation and help them acquire whatever coin that they need. But it's fascinating, but it's also kind of scary too, because anybody could be a victim. You know, we've seen companies who are IT consulting, cyber specialty firms are the ones being held ransom. They're the ones selling to others that, hey, I'm here to protect you. Come hire me, and we're going to upgrade your system so you're not a victim of a hack or ransom. And then they're getting ransomed. And I think I've dealt with two of those situations, and I'm just like, oh God, you know, like privacy is obviously the utmost concern. They don't want anyone to know that they're a victim. So, I mean, that's part of our policy to keep everything confidential and keep it private, because, you know, that would destroy their business to think, hey, why would I hire you? You just got hacked.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That's interesting. I have a friend we were talking about some of the stuff going on in the stock market, and he had questions about Bitcoin and all that. And he's like, yeah, I want to get into it, but I'm just not sure if it's very secure. And I'm like, well, it kind of depends on how much homework you do and how knowledgeable you are. There's still a slight barrier to entry. I know that there's companies out there that make it easier for people, but really it comes down to the person, you know, knowing their stuff. And it's not something I recommend to every person quite yet. Just kind of have to gauge how technical they are. Do you foresee that kind of becoming more streamlined in the future, where people don't have to worry about, you know, losing keys or getting locked out of their wallets? Or
yeah, you're seeing more groups in Coinbase and Gemini have like cold storage capabilities. So they're like literally holding the keys offline, so they're not hackable. But you're using another party, an institution, to hold your keys. It's like if you have gold, do you want to keep the gold in your house, you know, of a risk of it getting stolen, you know, of a break-in, or do you want to go to a bank and find a vault depository and trust that institution is going to hold your gold? It's the exact same thing. You can hold your own keys in, you know, the Ledger Nano wallet or KeepKey, or, you know, any of the other little cold storage wallets that are on a thumb drive. Put that in your safe in your house. You know, you could also back those up for redundancy. But if somebody breaks in and gets in your safe or takes your safe because it's not a bolted down one, you just lost all the Bitcoin. It's like somebody coming in and steal your gold. So it really just comes down to your like level of tolerance. You know, how bad do you think doomsday is going to happen? If you think doomsday is going to happen and you don't want even to put it into a vault or a safety deposit box tied to another institution because you feel like when all goes to hell, they're going to go down too, then you probably just want to put it, assuming the internet doesn't go down, which I don't know how that's possible. But like, then you probably want to keep it yourself. But right now there are the tools that are far better than they were in 2017. I think when you first started seeing the introduction and growth of those, those little cold storage flash drive wallets, it's far more secure and allows you to have redundancy, and sometimes to memorize a phrase or write it down somewhere that'll always give you access to those keys, even if you lose that wallet. So even the less technical people can, who believe in doomsday, can hold coin far better than they could today than they did in 17.
Yeah, that's good. Just reminds me of that scene from John Wick when he's got like his guns and gold in underneath concrete in his basement. He's got to bust it open with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, same thing. And then the next, you'll see like John Wick like 9, because I'm sure there's going to be that many. You will see like a Ledger Nano wallet when he's going for his gun.
Yeah, man, I love those movies. Right on, man. I did have one more kind of, if we can get back to game theory. I don't know if we really got too much into that. We've seen that with the GameStop meme stocks, kind of the momentum behind is it fundamental or is it speculation? Do you see any of that in the crypto realm, or is that kind of exclusive to the traditional stocks?
Yeah, I mean, so the behavioral finance still applies to cryptocurrency in the exact same way it does with stocks. The difference with crypto and tokens is they're much simple. Their thesis is far more simple. Blockchain for X, this is what we're doing. Here's some information on it. This is why it's working. Everybody buy my coin, because it's 4 cents now, but it should be valued at 8 cents. When you have a company, you have, financial statements, you have balance sheets, you have other information, you have who am I selling to, who's buying my product. So like, why is the price undervalued? So you have way more data and information, I think, noise that goes into stocks to, force fundamentals. But when you have crypto and these altcoins for blockchain for X, you have less noise. It's simple. And if you see tied to sort of the momentum of it, and getting to sort of a tipping point of the frenzy, when somebody looks at what the price was and what it went to and how it got here, and then you're still seeing the noise, and then you have enough sort of like social media impact and Reddit and subreddit blogs and Twitter and people pumping it, you're like, all right, I want to jump on that. Where do I go get it? What exchange? I'm going to open up a Binance account, Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken, whatever. I'm going to jump on all these and try to throw a couple bucks in here. Most people are not buying. I would be hard to believe that if there's more than 1% of the people who are buying these coins that actually believe in the fundamentals of whatever the blockchain is that they're selling in their white paper and their thesis. Again, I'm not saying that they can't come to fruition, but when it's sold in an open market, people are jumping on this for pure speculation and frenzy, knowing that I have an out point. This is not a buy and hold investment. I'm not buying this altcoin because I'm going to sit on it for 8 years and it's be part of my portfolio. This is, I'm buying this, and if this gets up 10x, I'm out. So what you're going to see is these massive, volatility spikes, in these coins. And because there's so much money out there, Bitcoin has got so much more institutionalized than it's ever been. And now the altcoins are just like fast followers to say, hey, you missed out on the price of Bitcoin. What about this coin? What about X coin? What about Bitcoin? Come on. And then people are like, oh, I missed on Bitcoin, so I'm going to jump on this. But knowing that they're going to be out in a short period of time, that's what's scary, because it's just a massive casino. That's all it is. And it goes sort of unchecked and unregulated for the most part in a lot of these coins. And it becomes a zero-sum game if there's no fundamental side to it. And those who benefit the most are going to be those who actually created it and created the frenzy and created the hype, because when the price goes up, they're the ones selling their coins. And I don't have to disclose that like you do with stocks. If you're an insider, you have more than like 5%, you have to disclose that I'm selling my shares. Sometimes you get approval. If I own 80% of this ABC altcoin, I can sell all of it. Nobody would know that I sold it. And yeah, I'm still pumping it. And then when it goes to zero, I'm like, well, I'm out. Doesn't matter to me. I already made $10 million. I'm fine. See you guys. Have fun with this project. Doesn't matter to me. And that's the scary part.
Right. Would you say that the crypto is more like the free market today than the stock market is? Because it seems like we've seen a lot of institutions jump in and limit people from buying certain things, and there's been centuries of regulation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from to allow other individuals to participate who don't, who have less income and less money, to get, a large significant number of return, you can get exponential returns, far greater in these crypto altcoins than you can in the stock market. But the problem is that most, if not all of these altcoins have no fundamentals. So that means they're all going to go roughly to zero if there's no fundamentals to come to fruition, because there's nothing there. It's just vaporware. It's just a nice story. That's the scary part of it. So and some of the good things that came with like the SEC, the regulation, forced disclosures of financials, force them to get audits first before you disclose it. Like that transparency is good. So all the good things that come with some of the forced transparency that consumers need to see to make an informed investment decision. Those are good things. And so then when you have the altcoins, you throw all that out the door. It's just when you, I mean, I don't even know if I use the word free market. It's just the extreme frontier. It's like, us coming on, ships of the Mayflower, and onto the shores. And this is a complete open land, and we're writing the rules as we do it. It's almost like in crypto, in a roundabout way, that's what's going on. But the difference is we have social media. We could communicate and spread noise like wildfire, like we couldn't. So that's causing more of these frenzies to happen, and more people to feel like they're missing out and they got to jump in on it. To me, I think it's more scary, and I think more people are going to be hurt by it because of this frontierism and this, and they are going to benefit. Those who benefit are the ones who just like we're smart to say, I'm getting in 1 penny and I'm getting out at 8 cents. But somebody's going to get left holding the bag. That's always the rest. Somebody's going to be left holding whatever shares, and then those shares are going to be nothing. So again, it's like a casino. It'll be a zero-sum game unless these coins actually produce something of fundamentals and show results that give it some sort of real value. My fear is most do not. And I still have not seen that many have come to fruition who've pushed their market and pushed their coin all over the place. The good projects are the ones who want to keep it to themselves. They don't want to sell their coin. If you have a great company, why do you want to give the whole thing away? I mean, you want to keep it to yourself and build it.
That's a good point. One of the reasons I like Bitcoin is because it was original. It didn't really have anything else attached to it. It was just kind of like more of an idea. I guess there's Ethereum that has some use cases, kind of like a worldwide computer. We're still kind of unfolding. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I definitely think you're right. It's kind of like a wild frontier for a lot of these altcoins, and it's just interesting to see human behavior carry over from other finances and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's sad, and history repeats itself, and humans are humans, and that's never going to change.
Yeah. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time to come back on the show, and it's crazy how fast this has went. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk to the audience about anything you'd like. If you'd like to talk about DigitalMint. I'm sorry we didn't even really talk much about it.
No, it's okay. No, I mean I'm not here to boast our company, but thank you for bringing it up. I think just I think the last thing I just want to say to the audience is like, just beware, of all the noise that goes on in the space with the coins, and just know that if you're jumping in, you're basically gambling. It's like the same thing of going in on FanDuel. Just be careful. If you really want to invest in fundamentals, do your homework. If you want to gamble and get in and out, that's fine. It's your prerogative. You can do that. But just be very careful because of the frenzy and the noise that spreads in the space, because it really is the frontier. I think, I would end with that. Just be careful and, be safe.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's definitely good advice. It seems like by the time everyone's talking about something, it's probably not the best time to get in, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong before. Yeah,
it could be too late by that point. Yep, you never know. It's hard to tell. There's no data that can tell if you're in and out early or you're in and out at the end. You have no idea.
Good point. That's very true. Well, Marc, I really appreciate you coming back on the show. It's been great to talk to you. If you want to let people know where they can connect with you or learn more, please feel free.
Yeah, you can just go to www.digitalmint.io. Come check us out. We're going to have a whole new facelift sometime in the summer, since there's a lot of different product and services we have, which our website don't display. But, check us out. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. It's Marc, M.A.R.C. @digitalmint.io. I look forward to any questions or thoughts anybody has. Thanks again for having me on, Ethan. I had a good time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, it was great talking to you.